Hi YouTube, welcome back to my channel. A bit of brush talk today because I have been using the Artis Elite Collection foundation brush. Well, I call it foundation brush. This one for a couple of weeks now, and so I thought it was time to share what I thought about it and compare it with some of my other foundation brush favourites, and hopefully maybe get some feedback from some of you. I know when I posted just after I got this on Instagram, a couple of people mentioned they really loved this range and knew a lot about it, so it'd be interesting to hear in the comments below, hopefully, other people's views as well. So there's been quite a lot of talk about this range. I think they do it in different finishes. Here's the box, which I'd kept. They are Cosmifiber animal-free beauty. So synthetic brushes. There's a whole range of them, but I went for the Oval 7, which they say is the perfect size brush for applying foundation, contour, blush, highlight, bronzing and setting powder. This patented brush applies and blends products so beautifully the application looks natural and healthy. Made in China, which doesn't please me. I'm sorry if I've got any Chinese viewers, but I try to avoid Chinese manufactured products if possible, as I have issues with the regime there, but that's another story. However, here we are, made in China, quite expensive. Quite sure whoever made these wasn't paid anything like what they're being marketed in the West. About £45, I think, which is a lot in my view. However, I'd read quite a lot about them. You can see, I mean, the brush reminds me of a kind of toothbrush rather than a standard foundation brush. And the box doesn't contain any instructions at all, other than this kind of diagram on the back with, I suppose, the areas that you can use the brush on highlighted. So it doesn't really say how you to use it. I found it quite counterintuitive the first time I used it because, of course, you're kind of using it from the side rather than directly head on like a more conventional foundation brush. And the first time I used it, I applied liquid foundation with it over a new primer base, which was the Too Cool for School one. And I think there was a problem with that combination because, in fact, the foundation kind of beaded up. It was absolutely disastrous. And I thought, oh my God, it's the brush. In fact, I haven't had that problem since. So I think it was just something to do with maybe not letting my moisturiser sink in, or the combination of that particular primer and foundation. Since then, I've had much better results. I do like this brush and the finish it gives in some circumstances. I think it has some particular strengths and some weaknesses. I suppose I ought to say, kind of by way of contrast or comparison rather, with the brushes that I like, I've put out my two favourite foundation brushes. I have any number, but my two favourites that I go to most frequently are this Shiseido foundation brush, which you can see is a very small, densely bristled, blunt cut, with a very short handle, very easy to manipulate brush. I'm not sure if this is still available. I'll look up after I've recorded this. I can remember I felt very expensive at the time I bought it, which is a good few years ago now. But it was a revelation to me when I bought it. It made just such a difference in the finish of foundation, which up till then I'd been applying either with a damp sponge or with my fingers, or with the conventional flat foundation brush that was around at the time, and it's remained one of my all-time favourite foundation brushes. I use it a lot, and although it's looking slightly baggy at the ends, given I wash it at least once a week, it's doing really well. Very good quality brush. The other one that I like a lot peeling a bit here, but a much more budget friendly, real techniques. I've probably only had this, I don't know, just over a year, but again, apart from the handle, it's holding up really well to regular washing. Again, fairly dense, but a domed brush, and I use this a lot, and the finish I get with the two of them is very, very similar. I slightly prefer this just because it's easier to manipulate, but if you're looking for a cheaper option, this is great. I bought it in a set, which was about £20 for 4 or 5 brushes. I don't know how much this retails at, but certainly not even £10, £11. So it's a really good cheap option for a good foundation brush. So those are the kind of two that I use very regularly. Now, how does this one compare? Where I think this is strong is once you kind of get used to the slightly different technique, which I find harder to quickly apply my foundation on the right-hand side of my face, my right hand being dominant. It's easy to kind of reach over to the other side of the face. It is really, really quick. I dot on the foundation and then you literally kind of sweep over and don't kind of work the foundation in at all. It just sweeps all over the face. One of the pluses is it's so soft, the bristles, you can use this over the eye area, whereas I wouldn't do that with either of these two. And I've almost started putting a little bit of foundation, sweeping over the eyes, and I find that works quite well. Where I think this brush is really strong when I look at the finish in a magnified mirror is if I'm using a very liquid foundation. It works really well with very liquid foundations over a primer. Certainly for me, its strength is it doesn't in any way drive the foundation into my slightly enlarged pores around the chin and nose area. It just seems to skate over, which means that with a good primer or pore cream on underneath, you get a slightly more flawless finish than you do with either of these two, which tend to slightly more drive the product into the skin and the pores. But you do need, for that to work, in my view, a good quality, that is highly pigmented, fairly liquid foundation. Where this brush, to me, doesn't work as well is with creamier or stiffer foundations. So, for example, I do use liquid foundation, but I also use stick foundations, particularly on the chin area, and kind of highly pigmented, almost wax foundations. And I don't personally very often use cream foundations, but I did test this brush with a Kevyn Aucoin one that I've got that I don't like that much, and I found the same problem with that. So with these stiffer, creamier foundations, this brush tends to make them go in a bit streaky, and you get this slightly streaky look however much you work the foundation, whereas these other kind of stiffer, more focused brushes, they do work the foundation in more, so you might have more of a problem with the pores, but you don't get that streaky look. So I'm making it sound as if one or other of them don't do a good job. I like all three of these brushes, and I think all three of them make my foundation look better than it would look with just being applied by fingers, with the slight exception of the stick foundation, because I do think finger application works quite well with that. All three of them, basically work, but this one does have its drawbacks with, as I say, the creamier foundations, but looks better with the liquid foundation. So, for example, by way of example, have been using this fairly consistently with the Tom Ford Traceless, and with or without primer, it does a beautiful job. And really kind of skims the surface, gives a really, I won't say flawless, but very nearly flawless coverage. the other two do as well. The other thing about it is when you come to wash it, I haven't washed it a lot and it needs washing today, although it does have that graduated colour even when it's clean. These two brushes, when you wash them, because they're so dense and the product kind of drives down, they do require quite a lot of scrubbing and multiple rinses, pushing through the brush to get them clean. As you're rinsing, the water stays dirty for quite a long time. So they are both a bit of a faff to wash compared with this one, which seemed to just want one scrub and then rubbing through. I wasn't getting coloration in the rinsing water. So I think perhaps because it is a bit softer, I don't know. It's a dense brush, but it does seem slightly easier to clean. So if you're, in a real rush when you're cleaning, this one would be easier. So I do like it, and I'm definitely going to continue using it. There's a whole range, as I say. I'm not sure I particularly understand the benefits of some of the smaller ones for applying eye makeup, but I'd be very happy to read the comments of anyone who's perhaps got any of those, because there's a whole range for applying different products. At the moment, I'm kind of happy with this one, and I haven't used it for anything other than applying foundation. But yeah, it's a nice brush, as it should be for that price. And definitely joining my other two favourites. So that's what I'm thinking of the Artis at the moment. And as I say, I'd be very interested to hear from any viewers who have used any of the other brushes in the collection. Until next time, bye for now.